Well, anybody who is in a relationship currently troubled by an affair or affairs will be very happy to know that about 2/3 of people in relationships where one or both of them are having an affair, about 2/3 of the time, those relationships not only recover, but get to a place that people say was better than before.
Hello and welcome to Fierce and Flawless, the Female Project. I am Dr. Antonella Kaler and I am on a mission to find out exactly what it takes to build an indestructible foundation and achieve our best reality. I am thrilled to bring you stories of inspiring women who were fierce and relentless when pursuing their passions, who did not blame their struggles on so-called character flaws, and who took control to lead extraordinary lives. If you're a woman who is tired of feeling like your life is merely a product of cause and effect, and you are ready to be the woman that causes the effect, keep listening to learn the necessary insights to navigate life's toughest challenges, break through the most disheartening plateaus, and unleash your inner alpha woman. And don't forget, you have the exclusive opportunity to win our Alpha Empowerment Book Bundle. It's 3 life-changing books whose authors you heard speak on the show and a 12-week wellness program by me. So please visit www.thefemaleproject.net/podcast to find out exactly what you need to do to participate. So good luck and thank you for listening. Hello, Alphas, and welcome to another episode of Fierce and Flawless, the Female Project. We have a very fun episode for you today with Dr. Duana Welch, the woman who uses science and facts to solve common relationship issues. She is a globally renowned author. Her book has been published in 5 languages, and she's contributed to PBS, eHarmony, The Daily Mail, and many more. Dr. Duana and I talk about common mistakes during all stages of a relationship, from the cringeworthy blunders of a bad first date to downfalls in long-term relationships. We address the uneasy topic of infidelity, where Duana gives us the exact insight on why it happens and how to recover the relationship and come out stronger. There are so many pearls of wisdom Dr. Duana shares with us, and she talks about something really interesting that I struggled with when I was still in the dating scene. So basically, this is what would happen. Now, I have a very strong personality. As you may have noticed, I like to talk a lot. I am very passionate about a really wide range of topics, so I have a habit of trying to dominate the conversation, especially if it's a topic that I have a strong opinion on. It's basically impossible to get me to stop talking about it. Now, I do know this about myself, so I am very self-aware of how I am and how I interact with people. So what I would do is I would go out and I would titrate my personality to exactly match the person that I would be going out with. So I would always suppress and pause and just try to mirror what the other person was like. And that certainly did secure the relationship in the beginning. But that actually was what ended up undoing them in the end, because of course, sooner or later, my actual personality came out full color, high definition, and the other person would get more suppressed and let me talk over them. And then I would just lose interest. And when I serendipitously met my husband, I was actually not in the mood at all to be starting a relationship. So I didn't care. And he got the director's cut extended edition of myself. And guess what? He was a huge talker too. And he struggled with exactly the same problem. He had a very similar history to myself. And it was like a weight was lifted when we started interacting, and it was real human communication. And of course, the rest is history. Now, I'm not saying, don't bring your best self and just go as is when you wake up in the middle of a weekend rolling out of bed. Not at all. And Dr. Duana actually has the exact method of how to balance bringing your best self, but not hiding your true self. And if you're already in a long-term relationship, then we also go through the common pitfalls in the entire relationship timeline to keep you sharp and to keep the romance going strong. So stay tuned for a visionary, a scientist, and an amazing alpha woman, Dr. Duana Welch.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me, and on such short notice. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
If you can tell me a little bit about what your passion is these days and how your life has sort of led you to the track that you are on currently and how you found your passion.
Sure. I am really passionate about making relationship science user-friendly and available to absolutely everyone. And how I got on that path was actually because I wasn't very good at dating. And my love life was not going very well. In short, I had a broken picker. I was good at picking men who, while not terrible people, were not right for me. Mm-hmm. And good at seeing what I wanted to see instead of what was there and ignoring my own needs and putting the focus on others. So those were issues that I needed to fix. But I also didn't understand the human mating ritual, the dance that men and women do in order to kind of suss each other out and see whether they want to be together. And so after one particularly bad heartbreak, I went to the library and the bookstores looking for a science-based relationship advice book, and it did not exist.
Oh, no.
It didn't exist. And so I thought, well, surely someone's done science on this. At the time I was at the time I was getting my PhD at the University of Florida in memory and aging. So even though that wasn't my field, I figured it had to be someone's field. Well, it turns out there had been about 60 years of really solid science on human mating and relating in various fields: anthropology, psychology, biology, sociology, chemistry. So based on that, I was able to formulate my own action plan and hold myself to it. I was successful. Other people started coming to me and wanting me to help them, and it all grew from there. And so now I have one book out, one book on the way, and a global client practice.
Yes, Love Factually. I love that.
Thank you so much. I really, I'm so delighted that what started out as pain for me has turned into joy for so many. I got the sweetest letter 2 days ago from this man who met his wife in a book club where they read my book.
Wow.
And he said the sparks flew and he just saw how she smiled. And, he thought, well, we're both reading this book. I could approach her. And now they're married and they're very happy. It's just very rewarding.
Wow, that's amazing. What do you see as kind of the number one mistake that men and women make at the start of relationships, where maybe they fail to analyze the situation properly, or maybe they, make some irrational decisions, irrational actions in the beginning that sort of set things off course? Do you see a common theme where people kind of mess things up?
Absolutely. Mating centrism is my term for it. It's believing and acting on the belief that the opposite sex has the same mating psychology that you do. If you are fortunate enough to be same-sex oriented, then you have an insight into the mating psychology of the person that you'd want to attract. But if you happen to be heterosexual, then probably you don't have that good an insight into it. And this is why men send dick pics. You sent a crotch shot to a guy, most guys would probably be kind of intrigued by that. But I'm yet to meet the woman who said, oh yeah, baby, I want to date you now.
No, that is so true. And then they're shocked. And after, when they get the block and the creepy, like, oh my God, never call me again kind of response.
Well, because they're doing something that for them often would in fact be attractive. So, women make this same mistake. Oh, the guy wants to have sex with me right away, which means he really likes me. I'll do it because my friends are telling me that if I don't do it, he's going to go away to someone who will. When the truth is that men have a simultaneously short-term mating program and a long-term mating program that run concurrently. And with women that they have sex with instantly, they really like that. But unfortunately, it pleases their short-term mating psychology. It moves you from the column of Mrs. Could Be Right to Miss Right Now. Now, you're on that.
Now, if you have an understanding of that, and, as a woman, you understand, okay, that a lot of the actions that you're currently seeing, or a lot of the behavioral patterns, exemplified by the man that you're dating, are happening because of certain kind of preset patterns, what are you supposed to do with that knowledge? Do you just try to kind of suit what they're doing, or do you need to alter your own behavior?
Well, we don't have control over what anyone else does. And so one of the things that's frequently cited as a complaint that men and women have about using mating psychology in dating is that you're trying to manipulate other people. And what I would say is, A, pretty much everyone gets up every day and tries to get what they want. In that sense, we're all manipulative. But B, what I'm really after is understanding the signals that are coming your way and moderating your own behavior so that you get the most success. Not so you, quote unquote, make someone fall for you. You can't do that, by the way. Boy, would I be rich if I knew how to make someone. What you can do is you can set up enough standards and barriers so that people who don't really love you won't want to stick with you, and people who really do will.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a tricky part also at the beginning of the relationship. You have people trying to do all these things, trying to maybe even be people they aren't necessarily people that they aren't naturally. Like my husband and I, even we look back at some of our first dates and we cringe. We're like, remember when I said that? And I'm sure that's pretty common, but that's really hard not to do. It's really hard to kind of just embrace your natural personality and try to kind of go as is, I guess.
Yeah, well, before we started, you and I were talking about motherhood. And when I met the father of my child, he said to me, "You don't ever pretend to be less smart than you are, do you?" And he was surprised by that. And I said, why would I do that?
Right.
If I got a guy who got the toned down, tamped down version of me at the beginning, and then I let him know who I was, or even worse, I never let him know who I was. Mm-hmm. Both be living a lie. So, yeah, there's something to be said, a lot to be said, actually, for putting your best foot forward. And for showing the very best you have to offer right out of the gate. A lot of people just want to tell all their deepest, darkest secrets right away, and that is a big mistake. Mm-hmm. You want to keep it really light when you first meet people. You want to interview them to see if their life goals are similar to yours, but you don't want to get so heavy that they don't call again. And that's another finding from science. Let people see your best, because you know that people pay attention most to what they learn first and worst. Bad information has more of an impact than good information. So you want all the good information to come up front. Later on, if it turns out maybe you're a little messy, they don't care so much. But if their very first impression is that, and I'm not making this up, by the way, someone did this to me when I was dating. I needed the bathroom. We were near his house. I went into his house and he made me wear a blindfold to make it to the bathroom because he did not want me to see his house.
What was wrong with the house?
Every surface is covered with filth, grime, and stuff. Yeah.
Well, you see, at that point, I feel like I would be more concerned about the blindfolding ritual rather than the fact that the house was a disaster.
I've known him for a lot of years now.
Yes.
And there was nothing. I have good instincts about that. There was nothing going on there except that filthy house, and I could never have lived with that. The smarter thing is, oh no, there's a bathroom right here at this store. Let's go there instead. Explaining that your house is so filthy that it cannot be viewed. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, in terms of good activities, do you give people any kind of recommendations for sort of first date activities where people can interact in a little bit more of a less sort of interviewee sort of environment, something that gets people a chance to get to know each other? Because, like the dinner in a movie is really tough because in the movie you're just sitting together in silence, right? You're not really getting to know each other all that well.
I totally agree with you. In general, I advise against things where you can't actually talk to the person. I think the ideal first date is actually just meeting for some kind of non-alcoholic beverage, preferably even during the day. Mm-hmm. You can just talk to each other, see whether you like being in each other's presence. Mm-hmm. You find this other person to be at all interesting. See whether you have similar general life goals. It's totally okay to say, you know what? I think you're a lot of fun. And the danger with you being a lot of fun is if we don't have the same view of the future, I could really like you and then find out this isn't going to work. Would you mind telling me what your ideal future would look like? You can actually say that the very first time. It won't scare away anybody who wants what you want.
Sure. Yeah, it's much better to do it this way rather than spending and investing a whole bunch of time only than to realize that your paths are ultimately divergent, right?
Yeah. There's just no point in going down a path. The danger is not that we'll only find one person to love. The real danger is that we'll love lots of people that are wonderful, but really have much business in our life, and that we'll spend a lot of time going down a path which we could have shared with a person who's just right for us.
Now, once we have that kind of first date down and we feel that the sparks are flying, do you tend to give any advice about the actions that follow? Because a lot of both men and women sort of fall into this cycle of irrational behavior. They're anxious, they're excited, and they do a whole bunch of things that are, send off a bunch of red flags to the other person, even if that's not genuinely who they are. And then they're surprised as to why it's not turning out. Do you have any kind of recommendation about how to behave afterwards to not to do some positive action?
Yes, I can distill many decades of science all around the world into the following statement, and then we can extrapolate from that to how to behave. Women want a willing and able provider and protector, and men want fertility and fidelity. And what that means for you is, if you're a woman, you're looking for a man who shows you enthusiastically that he is pursuing you. So if he seems more into you than you are into him, that's good. Don't take that like, oh, creepy stalker, I can't be seen with you ever again. He really wants to invest in you. That's the guy to pay attention to, is the one who really, really wants to. And what you need to do for him is let him pursue you. Don't take the job away from him. He needs that pursuit to give him the biological feedback that he requires so he can fall deeply in love. So that means, wait to have sex for a while until you are sure that he loves you. There's a thing called dopamine that needs to drive men for them to fall in love and stay in love. If their dopamine levels are high when and they're in love with you when sex happens, they fall more deeply in love. But guess what happens if their dopamine levels aren't all the way there yet?
They're not there and they stay down?
They actually fall.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of women will say, he just played me. He just had sex and left. He got confused. He didn't want to be with me anymore. I will tell you that as someone who's been coaching these same men for a long, long time, it wasn't normally some part of a nefarious plan where they thought, I'll just get her in her pants and leave. It was more like they thought, I'm so excited about her. I want to have sex. And then they have sex. And suddenly they just aren't that excited anymore. Let his excitement about you keep building until he is deeply in love before you have sex. And of course, you should want to have sex too. Like if he's deeply in love and you're like, I'm not there yet, then don't.
Of course.
Don't put it all off on what he wants. Do what you want too. But if what you want is a permanent mateship, then giving a man a lot of verbal feedback that he is doing the things you like and that you like him and that you're not quite ready yet for sex is actually a really good plan for you. Guys, you need to be showing a woman that you're really interested in her. In full, without any complaint, period. That is the number one advice that women gave in a big survey that I did. Men going on a date. And that's because just like a lot of other animal species, the male gives the female a food gift. In our species, what that gift of food, that gift of your time, that gift of your money, what that says is, I am not only able to provide something, but I'm joyfully, cheerfully willing to do it. And as I just said, women are looking for somebody not only able, but willing. Willing is actually more important than able. If all you can provide is a couple sandwiches by the lake, cool, but you provide them, okay? You can idea. You invest in the time and the expense of whatever it is, and you show that joyfully you want to spend time with this woman. Show her behavioral signs that this is more than casual. Those signs could be things like ask her out several days in advance. Call, don't just text. Everybody's texting right now with, hey, beautiful, what you doing? Don't be if she's desirable, she got 80 guys doing that. Don't be 81st. Instead, you be the one guy who picks up the phone and calls. If you're do that, text her and ask if you can call.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And it's just so much more attractive when somebody comes from an abundance type of mindset. You feel like that they're generous, and it's not about, and it has nothing to do, because you hear sometimes guys bring things up and like, well, I feel like, maybe they're trying to take advantage of me, or maybe should try to do this or that. It doesn't have to be anything major. Even small gestures go a long way.
That's right. Men and women, the chip on your shoulder is not attractive. Guys, when you say like she's just looking for a meal ticket, women who are not looking for a meal ticket now don't want to go out with you. That's how that works. So if you really want love, you have to be open to being loving. And men, that means showing steadfastness and generosity. And women, that means showing appreciativeness and showing that, yes, you really like this guy, but your standards are high enough that you wait until he's deeply in love before you get fully physically involved.
Absolutely. Now, let's say that our couple here makes it through this messy part, and then we're married with kids. We're a few years down the line. I'm sure you also see certain patterns where people go wrong in long-term relationships, where things are kind of let go however they go, and then they go off track.
Absolutely. We know from studies that the average couple that is in distress waits 6 years into their distress before they seek any professional help. And that's a mistake. We also know that happy couples actually complain the most, not the least. That surprised me.
Really?
Yeah, that surprised me. But the emphasis there is on complaining and not criticizing. So complaining sounds like this. And of course, I'm not talking about you, but let's say it was about you. And I had to say,
sure.
Look, Dr. K, I really felt sad and a little bit lonely when you didn't hold our meeting at the time that you said you would. And I just need to hear that you're sorry and that it won't happen again. That's a complaint.
Right.
A criticism would be, well, you're such a self-important snob that I wasn't even important enough for you to pay attention to. One of these people can pay attention to and can clue into, and they will think, oh, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. I want to help you with that. And the other one, people are going to defend themselves.
Oh, yeah, right away. It puts you in defensive mode. Like, well, this is not even real. And I already got goosebumps of like, hey, wait a second, ma'am.
Exactly. So good science from the past 35 years shows that happily married couples don't have fewer problems or even sometimes different types of problems than unhappy couples do. But they are pretty well matched. And so they pick a set of problems they can live with. First of all, their pickers are good. And I talk a lot in my books about how to fix your broken picker, how to pick well. The second thing is that once they've chosen well, they understand that they're still going to need to fine-tune their relationship, but they're going to do it from place of kindness and respectfulness. So they become really good complainers, and they try not to criticize. They could criticize far less. They also do a lot more positive things. For example, if you and I had a bank account together and we put in $1, we could only take $1 out before we're broke. But in the bank of emotions and love, you have to put 20 whole dollars into the bank before you can take one out, because taking $1 out is actually taking $20 out. So for every hush, I'm listening to television or whatever, for every one of those, you have to have 20 positives to be happy. To survive in the relationship is also not 1-to-1. It's 5-to-1. So you have to have 5 times as many positive events on a day-to-day basis as negative events just to get by. Everyone who says, oh, if you've got as much bad as good in a relationship, it'll work, they're all wrong.
Mm-hmm. You need a whole lot more good.
A lot more good. So yes,
more, yeah.
Complain a lot more, but they also do all the great stuff a lot more. And this gives us insight into why, even if you're married, the long distance relationship thing doesn't work very well most of the time. Because if you're in a long distance relationship, you have so much less contact than people who actually live together, that if you have to bring up anything, you may not have enough other contact to make up for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, if kind of this kind of stuff piles up, and now we're moving more into the fields of, let's say there's infidelity within the relationship. Now, why does that usually happen? And is there any way to recover from that in the relationship?
Well, anybody who is in a relationship currently troubled by an affair or affairs will be very happy to know that about 2/3 of people in relationships where one or both of them are having an affair, about 2/3 of the time, those relationships not only recover, but get to a place that people say was better than before.
Wow.
So, yeah, you definitely can recover from an affair if. And let's get to the if in a second, because you already asked how do affairs or why do affairs happen. I'm going to just put it in really shorthand form. Lonely women make good lovers. Lonely. You do not want this, because if she's at all attractive, someone else will probably start paying attention to her. If she's having her emotional needs met by her spouse, then usually she's not going to be very open to that. But if they're not, that's opening the door to problems. Men, on the other hand, have been found to have affairs independently of whether or not they are happy in their marriage, which really surprises women.
Right.
The number one predictor of whether a man will have affairs is whether he can. The number one predictor of whether he can is how good looking he is. To wit, there is a study that shows that women who are given a hypothetical choice between a man who is very successful and only average looking versus a man who's very successful and very good looking, if they're asked which one they would choose as their lifelong partner, they're more likely to choose the average looking successful man. I think women have an intuitive understanding that the good looking successful man is going to have a lot of options. And, so for example, if your ex-husband looks like a Calvin Klein underwear model and is at the very top of his profession and is charming and travels all the time and is famous, that's the perfect storm. We know that the usual suspect for cheating in a guy is Mr. All That. He travels for work. He's good looking. He's well known. He's at the top of his profession. He's rich. Well, women actively offer those men sex. Like Chris Rock had a comedy routine years ago where he said, you know what, you all are going to think of me as the guy who cheated on his wife twice and his marriage ended in divorce. He said, but let me explain how it is from my perspective. From my perspective, thousands of women offered me free sex and I said yes only twice.
That's true. Yes, that's certainly a perspective.
Well, if you put an endless line of dark chocolate in front of me and say nobody will ever know, I'm eventually going to eat some.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm saying that there's no man in that circumstance who could control himself. My understanding is that Paul Newman had a happy and definitely long-lasting marriage to Woodward and was faithful to her. But that's not the way to vote. Or to bet, I should say. It's not the way to bet. And so, if fidelity is super important to you, one thing is to look for a man who's got a long track record of fidelity, who maybe doesn't travel so much, hasn't had sex with a whole lot of people before you met him, even though he could have. If he's at the top of his profession, he is someone who expresses a high value on fidelity. He hasn't cheated on past partners. We all have a crystal ball into how people will act in the future, and that's how they acted in the past. So just keep that in mind. A guy who, is kind of average looking, kind of has an average career, and, yes, once years ago he had an affair with a former partner, but he felt horrible about it and he never cheated again, and he's had a serious relationship since then, and he realized that the reason he would never cheat again is that it's against his own moral code. That guy is not cheating again.
Yeah, wow. That's certainly an eye-opening bit of information. I had no idea. So if a couple, let's say, is in that situation, you say they can certainly recover. All hope is not lost.
That's right. But the way that couples recover surprises even most therapists. Most therapists think that what you need to do, and by the way, I'm not a therapist. I'm a relationship scientist. I apply science, but I don't do therapy. There's definitely a place in the world for wonderful therapists. I encourage most of my clients to see them, but that's not what I do. But I will tell you that research shows that most therapists think that what you need to do with a couple in crisis from an affair is avoid talking about the affair, just talk about affair recovery. And what one of the most famous scientists in the field of infidelity recovery and discovery, Shirley Glass, found was that that's not the way to go. The affair, the person who had the affair has to tell their partner, their mate, everything the mate wants to know about that affair, everything.
Wow.
In order to reestablish trust. And one of the reasons for this is, let's say that you're the one who was cheated on, and now you're thinking, so that time that you didn't come to our daughter's piano recital, were you with her? Mm-hmm. What happens is you start not to trust your own sense of yourself, your ability to construe reality. Mm-hmm. You feel like you've been duped all the time, and you need to put together your past.
Sure. And I can imagine that you're also, become a slave to your own imagination, because if you don't have information, you're going to make it up in your own mind. And absolutely, it's going to be the worst case scenario of everything. And then you're in a retrograde jealousy sort of position just because you don't know. I feel like that when you're left up to your own devices to imagine what actually happened, it's going to be a lot more elaborate, complicated, and amazing than what actually happened.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But either way, the person who has had the affair has to answer all their spouse's. Mm-hmm. They have to answer all of them, because that's the only way their spouse is going to trust them again and going to be able to reconstruct their own sense of being able to trust themselves. What's going on at the time. And that's clearly not the only thing, but that's a really important thing that most therapists don't know. It's important how the affair was discovered. We know from, we've talked about Dr. Shirley Glass, now let's talk about Dr. Tim Cole. He's got a book out called Broken Trust, which I think is really great for anyone who's going through any kind of serious betrayal in a relationship. And what Dr. Cole, I endorsed his book, in fact, I think very highly of it. What Dr. Cole has found is that, for example, if you, the spouse, if you discover the affair, that's not as good for your long-term prospects staying together as if your spouse had come to you and told you about it. Mm-hmm. Because if you discover it accidentally,
then there's no trust.
Well, there's no trust. And then especially if you discover it accidentally, you confront your partner and they say, no, what you said, well, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? I mean, you got to have a partner who will confess and who will do differently going forward. So, for example, a good bet on your marriage getting put together after an affair is your partner told you about it, mm-hmm. and said they wanted to do better. I've known men who've written to me saying that they enlisted their wife to help them stop the affair.
Wow.
Those marriages lasted, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Really different than the guy who says, I don't care if she saw me having sex with the other person. I would plan.
It wasn't me.
That wasn't me. Who are you going to trust? My penis just slipped and fell into her. There are people who believe never admit it. It's worse. No, what happens then is you don't have any ground, any footing for building trust again. If your partner won't give up their affair partner. Look, I have on very rare occasion known people who stayed together when the husband wouldn't give up his affair partner. I have known wives who basically said, I've known this man since we were teenagers, mm-hmm. been together 30 years now. This is a bump in the road. I'm going to win him back. I will stick through it till the passion fades and he realizes he had a moment of insanity and he returns to me. And sometimes that happens. There are people who can stomach that, but it's much better odds if you're in therapy, you're actually talking about how to live a life of transparency, how to deal with slip-ups if the affair partner reconnects with your mate. I've had people who've had affairs approach and say, well, now my spouse wants to see my cell phone and wants all my passwords. And my answer is, yes, they do. And you're going to give them if you want your marriage to last.
Now, if things don't work out and then you're in a single parent situation, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to segue so that you can talk a little bit about your upcoming book, which is very exciting, coming out in January. So that is more so for the single parents, correct?
Yeah, so I've got 2 books, and my first one is for absolutely everyone. It's the first book that uses science instead of opinion to help men and women through all 10 stages of dating. And so it's called Love Factually, 10 Proven Steps from I Wish I Do. Now, my second book is for single parents and those dating them, and it's called Love Factually for single parents and those dating them. What a surprise. And the books have some overlap, but they have a lot of distinctions, because when you're looking for the right partner, not just for yourself, but for your children, or when you're dating someone who already has a family, that really changes some of the aspects of the courtship and some of the ways that you go about things. So the single parents edition of this book comes out January 7th, all over the world in English, in audio, ebook, and paperback. And the first version of my book, the Love Factually, 10 Proven Steps from I Wish I Do, is available absolutely everywhere in Spanish and English, and is coming out in Polish, Japanese, and Vietnamese.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, and of course, if you are a single parent, as a person who has multiple friends that are single parents who start off in the dating game with a very kind of negative mindset, thinking that, these things are never going to work out. And of course, if it's going to come between choosing a potential partner and between my child will always win, naturally. I'm sure that's not the case. There is very much hope for having a wonderful and successful relationship, even as a single parent trying to start fresh.
Well, I write the books that I needed. I mean, I'm going to just tell you straight. I write the books that I needed, and I had needed this book. I have now been happily remarried for almost 11 years. And I used the science that's in the book in order to find my husband and in order to build a really solid relationship. And then, of course, I kept learning science. So there were some mistakes we made, which we then stopped making. But I can tell you for sure that although the odds of a successful remarriage are much lower if both people bring children to the mix than if neither partner brings children to the mix, I can also tell you that it's not a crapshoot. People have the idea currently that love is just a matter of luck. You're going to find it when you're not looking, that you need to get happy on your own first, and only then can you be happy with someone else. I can tell you that science is called a firm BS on all of the above.
All of those things. You see those all the time.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So love happens when people are looking. There's a word for people who weren't looking, and that word is usually single. You need to be strict about it. Just like, can you imagine if somebody said, well, I would love to have a job, but it needs to find me. That is not how life works.
No, that is how life happens in a beautiful fairy tale land where everything falls into your lap and the sunshine, glows your path on the way home.
That's it. And the odds that you have of, in terms of love being for the lucky, love is for everyone who will just put a little effort into learning what works for most people most of the time. By the way, that's what science is. The simplest definition of science I can give anyone is, in terms of social science shows us what works for most people most of the time. Will you have some variances from that? Probably in some small ways. But the big picture, probably you're going to fit the big picture pretty well. Your life's your own experiment. So why not learn what works for most people most of the time and see if it works for you? That's what I'm all about.
Amazing. That's wonderful. What a wonderful message. Now, also speaking of books, I like to hassle all of my guests as we sort of wrap up and come up on the half an hour mark about a book that made a profound impact on your life. Is there anything that you would recommend to the audience that you'd say, would be a positive to read kind of for everybody, apart from your own work, of course?
Well, I have to tell you that the world is changing. The message is starting to get out that just like we wouldn't send our car to be fixed by just anyone. We would look for someone who knew what they were doing, that maybe we shouldn't trust our love life to just any advice. Maybe we should rely on science. So there are a number of science-based advice books that I now recommend. For example, Shirley Glass, Not Just Friends for Affair Recovery. Tim Cole, about his book about intimate betrayal. And the books of Dr. Terry Orbuch. She calls herself the Love Doctor. She's written one for single people, one for married people. Dr. John Gottman, his science-based, really solid science. He's kind of platinum standard for married people. So there's really, it used to be that if you wanted a book about health, you would, of course, read from someone who had an education in that. But if you wanted a book about love, you would just read a book that someone wrote who thought they were good enough to write that book. And you don't have to do that anymore. Get informed by what works for most people most of the time, and your life will get better. I really promise you it will.
Now, since you do mention Shirley Glass and Not Just Friends, I have to ask, do you think that men and women can be just friends?
I know that they can. I also know that women are more likely to say that they can than men are, and that men are.
I'm not surprised by that. Yeah,
men are twice as likely as women to admit that in their same-sex friendships they're kind of hoping for something more. A guy hoping for something more doesn't mean you can't just be friends. It just means that there may be some sexual tension there from one side, if not both, and that. If you feel like that might be getting in the way, you might need to have an honest discussion about that and say, I really enjoy being friends with you, and this is all it can be. If you need to say that, sometimes nothing needs to be said. I will say that in these same studies, men say that they get a lot of benefits from their opposite sex friendships, and that they would not want to bring sex into the mix most of the time because they're worried about messing that friendship up. So it's not that they don't sincerely value their friendships, but yeah, men are more likely to think, well, if it turned into something else, that'd be a good thing.
Sure. Now, Dr. Duana, we're just coming right about at the end of our time here. Is there anything else at all that you would like to say? Any message that you want to share with the audience? This is sort of our open mic time for you.
Yes. I think a big mistake that people make is that instead of going into a date asking themselves whether they are choosing a great lifetime partner, they ask whether it's just a good time. Mm-hmm. Most of us don't just want a good time. If you do, that's fine. You can ignore everything I've said and just go for it. Anyone can have a good time right now today. Really, almost anyone can do that. But if, like most people, you really do have an eye on the future and on building a lifelong, intimate, loving relationship with someone else, then you need to think about the big picture. Think about whether this person is looking in the same direction in life as you're looking, whether they match what you must have, and whether they are kind and respectful even when things aren't going their way. Because I can guarantee you, based on the culmination of all the science, that if you can find and be someone kind and respectful, your love life will go well. And if you can't, it won't.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Duana. I am so excited about the amazing work that you're putting out there, the very high caliber, well-researched, solid foundation information that we so desperately need. And I really hope that you write a book about couples that are in long-term relationships, because I would love to read it. I would love to read the other ones from a curiosity perspective, but I would love to know and share in your wealth of knowledge for the long-term relationship. So hopefully one day you will write a book about that. No pressure.
So that is an increasing thing that people say, and I thank you very much. I feel like those who have already written have done a really good job. That said, my new book is the first one where I tell people, here is what to do once you are in the healthy relationship. Here's how to keep it healthy. So my new book actually does go into that, even though single parents and those dating them. My feeling was these are folks who have loved and lost. They're hurting. They're feeling really tender and as if maybe this will never work for them. And I want to give them the whole roadmap to the destination.
Wonderful. That sounds great. I'm going to be picking that up for sure. And we're going to be sharing all of the information about the books and the release dates with our audience. So thank you again so much for taking the time, especially on such short notice, to speak to me. I really appreciate your passion and your wealth of knowledge that you were willing to share with our audience.
Thank you so much. And if you ever have another topic you'd like to talk about, I'd love to be back on.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you.
Hey Alphas, it's Dr. Antonella from Fierce and Flawless, the Female Project. I cannot wait to bring you more incredible stories and exceptional insights from women who made an impact. So join me on this journey. Subscribe and comment with nominations for guests you would like featured next. I want to deliver content that ignites a spark in you, so your feedback is extremely important to me. To connect with me and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.thefemaleproject.net or add me on Instagram at dr.antonella. Thank you for listening and stay tuned.